today's class we are looking at the circulatory system. So the circulatory system, it consists of the heart, the blood, and the blood vessels. And it's very important because the circulatory system is circulating the blood all around the body. And within the blood, there are the food particles, dissolved gases, and all the other materials that the cells need. So it's very important because it's carrying all that, as well as carrying away all the waste materials as well from the cells. All right, so here is just a diagram showing the heart and some of the major arteries and veins of the body. All right, so first we are going to talk about the heart, and we're going to talk about the different sides of the heart and the different parts of the heart and their functions. So the right side of the heart is what pumps blood to the lungs, and that's important because that's where the blood will pick up the oxygen and leave behind the carbon dioxide. The left side of the heart will receive the oxygen-rich blood from the lungs and then pump it to the rest of the body. The blood will then return back to the right side of the heart to begin that cycle again. So there's 4 chambers in total. There are 2 atria. Those are the upper chambers of the heart. They're going to receive the blood from the body and the lungs. And then there's 2 ventricles. These are the lower chambers of the heart that pump blood to the body. So I do have a diagram here. All right, so like I said, the human heart, it has 4 compartments. There is the right atrium and the right ventricle down here. Notice when we look at the diagram, it is opposite. The right ventricle is on this side and the left ventricle is on this side. All right, and then we have the left atrium and the left atrium and left ventricle. Okay, so this here is the right ventricle. This here is the left ventricle. Then the 2 atria are up at the top. This is the right atrium, and this here is the left atrium. Okay, so now let's take a look at the blood flow. So again, when we talk about blood, when we see blue, that means it's low in oxygen or deoxygenated blood. And whenever we see red, it means it is oxygenated. So the blood is rich in oxygen. So that's the difference between blue and red whenever you see the diagrams. All right, so here we see blue. So those large veins are coming back to the heart and they are deoxygenated blood. All right, so the blood is very low in oxygen. So the blood will flow from those veins into the right atrium. From the right atrium, they're going to flow into the right ventricle. Then the ventricles contract. They're going to push the blood in through here. This is the pulmonary artery. And from there, it's going to go to the lungs, which isn't shown here. Okay, goes to the lungs to pick up oxygen, drop off the carbon dioxide. And then it's going to come back to the heart, to this atrium here, the left atrium. From the left atrium, the blood will go to the left ventricle. The ventricle contracts, and that oxygenated blood will now travel through this aorta and to the rest of the body. So there's arteries here, which will take the blood all the way to your upper part of your body, so the head, the shoulders, so on, and then it also continues down at the bottom so that your legs, hips, and feet and everything can get the oxygenated blood as well. All right, so that is how the blood flows through the heart. All right, so just another diagram here showing blood flow through the heart. Blue arrows are again showing the path of deoxygenated blood, so blood that is low in oxygen, and the red arrows are showing the path of blood that's high in oxygen. All right, so again, the blood is going to come to the heart as blue because it is deoxygenated, and it's going to enter here the right atrium. From the right atrium, it'll flow to the right ventricle. That will contract, which will push the blood through these arteries, which will take the blood to the lungs. To the lungs because it needs to pick up oxygen, drop off the carbon dioxide. Then the blood is going to come back to the heart. Back to the heart through these veins. It's going to enter the left atrium. Okay, now the blood is rich in oxygen. From here, it will go to the left ventricle. That will contract, and the blood will go through the aorta and to the rest of the body to deliver the oxygen to all the cells of the body. All right, just another diagram showing the same thing. This is just showing it a little bit differently. So here we can see how the heart, here we have the oxygen, the blood that is low in oxygen, and how it travels from the right atrium, right ventricle, and then it goes to the lungs. So here at the lungs, it's dropping off the carbon dioxide and picking up the oxygen. So it goes from blue to red, and then it returns back to the heart, to the left atrium, left ventricle, and then it is pumped all to the body. So here it represents going all to the body, and then it drops off oxygen, picks up carbon dioxide, and it has to go back to the heart. So the next part of the circulatory system we're going to look at are arteries, veins, and capillaries. Some say capillaries, some say capillaries. So arteries, these are the blood vessels that carry blood away from the heart to all parts of the body. And one way to remember that is arteries starts with A and away from the heart. So that's one way to remember it. So they have a thick muscular layer that expands and contracts to help push blood along. And we can also feel it as a pulse. So on our wrist, kind of under our jaw as well, you can feel that pulse. Veins, these are blood vessels that return blood from the body to the heart. They are thinner than arteries, and they also have valves that stop any backward flow of blood. And then next we have capillaries, and these are the tiny, tiny blood vessels that connect the arteries to the veins. They're very, very narrow, extremely narrow, and they're only one cell layer thick, all right, to allow for diffusion. All right, so just looking at this diagram of arteries, veins, and capillaries. So like I said, arteries are thicker than veins, so more muscular for carrying blood under pressure. Veins have thinner walls than arteries, and they also have valves inside of them that prevent any blood from flowing backwards. And then this is a capillary, but it is an enlarged diagram. They're very, very thin. They're hair-thin vessels, and their walls are just one cell layer thick. All right, so here, again, just looking at tissues of an artery, capillary, and vein. So here we have artery, and on this side we have the vein. So here in this diagram, we can see the valve inside of the vein. And then this here would be the capillaries. So that network that joins the arteries and the veins together. All right, so just continuing with arteries, veins, and capillaries. So we've talked about osmosis and diffusion quite a bit before, and they play important roles in the circulatory system. Diffusion is what transports oxygen from the blood into the cells and carbon dioxide from the cells back into the blood so that it can go to the lungs and we can exhale it out. Diffusion also transports some nutrients from the small intestine to the blood, and the diffusion of nutrients and gases, it occurs in the capillaries. So this diagram here that showed how arteries and veins are connected here with the capillary. And capillaries, they have two adaptations for exchanging gases and nutrients. One is they are made of that specialized epithelial tissue that's only one cell layer thick, And secondly, they are very narrow so that the blood cells, they have to pass through in single file. And these adaptations, it basically helps increase the rate of gas exchange between the blood and the cells. All right, so here we're just looking at that gas exchange happening. So recall from the respiratory system, we have here an alveoli. This was the bronchiole, and this is where gas exchange was happening. And notice the blood vessels surrounding the alveoli. So gases move back and forth between the alveoli and the surrounding blood vessels here. They're in close connection together. They're one cell layer thick so that gas exchange can happen very, very quickly. So what we're seeing in this diagram on here is, again, we have the alveolus here, the air containing oxygen, and here we see the capillary. So it's one cell layer thick, and again, carbon dioxide will leave the blood and enter the alveolus so that we can exhale it out, and then oxygen that we just inhaled will travel into the blood so that the blood can carry it to the rest of our body cells. Okay, we'll stop here for today.